I'm back with Melody and Memory, and I beat it. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to stream for a bit, and I really couldn't risk it being spoiled, because that would just... I know too many Kingdom Hearts people, so it would just happen eventually, even if they didn't mean it. So I beat it, but still going to go through some stuff, still going to talk a bit about the ending, and who knows? We'll see where this goes. So we're going right back to the most relevant part of Kingdom Hearts, which is RECODED. I guess I can try and get the last few stars I didn't get. There's nothing left to unlock with them, I don't think, but I gotta get all of them. It's Kingdom Hearts, I gotta get everything, unfortunately. So yeah, it turns out almost everything in Melody Memory is at the very end. It's just recapped the entire time like I started to predict. And there are some bombshells at the end. It's not anything that's going to really get to anyone who's not huge into what happens next with this franchise, but you know, it's exciting, just the fact that there's new stuff. Very new stuff with Kingdom Hearts for once, because it hasn't been like that since Birth by Sleep quite a long time ago. I've gotten a bit better at this game, so I've played it not a lot since the stream, but it is a good game. I love it. These boards are really great. Like, I can't really express them super well because I'm a very casual rhythm game player, but I was watching another streamer by the name of Shibuya Gato, and she was talking a bit about how well designed they are, and she's much better expressing it, and apparently she's thinking about making a video about how good these boards are and like the little details and stuff, because there's some really neat stuff. Even just, I was warming up a bit while I was waiting for some other stuff, and I played some Kingdom Hearts 2 songs, and like in the Underworld stage, for example, there's this bit where like some marimbas are playing really fast, and on beginner mode there's some dog heartless approaching you, and the little footsteps are synced up to the little like marimba dingling. Like it's there's so many details like that, like in the Timeless River stage in Kingdom Hearts 2, the Minute Bomb Heartless, the little bomb-shaped ones, they repeatedly, like, they'll run away from them and line up like they're setting up for a 3-hit, one of those like finisher type things where you have to do all 3 notes at once, and they'll keep running away, making you think they're gonna sync up for a 3-hit thing repeatedly throughout the final half of the stage. And like, it's such an unnecessary little detail, but I don't think it happens anywhere else. Of course, I haven't seen all however many would be, because there's so many different note formats, because there's performer mode versions and then also the 3 difficulties. So there's a lot to see that I haven't yet, but I don't know, just there's a lot of love and craft that went into all these individual stage types. Celestial Cage, you're trying to get to floor 99 of that tag mode dungeon? You're more patient than I am. RECODED is probably one of my favorite games ever, but that tag mode stuff is rough to grind if you don't live in Japan or exactly when the game released in 2010. RECODED doesn't have that much music, but this is a banger. The other song, Wonder Electron, I don't think is anything amazing, but the battle theme is really nice. It goes places. I actually remember there was an interview Yoko Shimomura did where talked about how in order to make the recoded music sound more like an old Nintendo music, they didn't have any reverb on the sound, so everything stops immediately the moment the note ends, which is how things were back in time of sampling, so good quality. I think I talked a bit about it on the last stream, but I've also been tweeting about it, how this game has all the assets it needs to just completely remaster both the DS Kingdom Hearts game. And man, as long as they don't mess up the gameplay, recoded in HD so more people can appreciate it would be so nice. Like, I think I said that Days needs it more, and it does. It's not a great game. It's better than Dream Drop Distance, I'd say, but like, it's one of those games that's balanced for multiplayer, even though you can't play the story mode in multiplayer. You have to beat a level in single player in order to even get access to the multiplayer, and of course, it's a DS game, so good luck actually playing multiplayer. Of course, I guess I can emulate it. Do that. Look into someday. Yeah, No More Bugs and No More Bugs Bug Version are both very great songs. I'm not sure if I'd put them in my top field battle themes, but they are nice. Like because when it starts going really fast, I really enjoy that part. All right, Recoded complete. Rest in peace to that. So yeah, I kind of suspected, but there's no way to rewatch the videos from here, so depending on how big of a deal that becomes, I just end up going to theater mode at the end of this to deal with that. So, I was kind of curious how it was going to be split up, and it's interesting that Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance end up being branches, because Birth by Sleep is considered Kingdom Hearts 0. It's not called Kingdom Hearts 0, but even like the secret ending is called 0 Point, and then there's like 0.2 as well, because it's within the secret ending they number the games and they call it 0. But it's interesting that Dream Drop Distance is considered just as much of a major title as Birth by Sleep, because I always consider it more of a Chain of Memories type situation, where it's important to set up the next game, but not on the scale of another major Kingdom Hearts title. It definitely is less ambitious, I'd say. I played a tiny bit of Birth by Sleep the other day, and yeah. Oh yeah, so I just never switched off Riku after I went through Dream Drop, because I played each team when I unlocked them. So I did Team Birth by Sleep for Birth by Sleep, but then I just never switched back, so my Riku is like level 80 at this point. And I'm, so 79, but it seems that what stats do, I don't know if people are just assuming with defense that it makes it so you take less damage, but attack seems to make it so that you can stun big Heartless more easily, which I think would mean that any team that has high strength is objectively the worst team, because that's a very situational thing, where you have to land the first hit on a big Heartless and then miss the one afterwards, so that it doesn't give you any damage. Man, so I've been trying to make it through Dream Drop Distance on my Xbox for a while because it's on Game Pass, and I was thinking when I was playing it a while ago, if I should try streaming it, but I legitimately, no pun intended, I think I'd fall asleep. Like, never mind that it does have the music like this, that would definitely work as a lullaby. Like, it's kind of a dull game. there's so much empty space that's kind of a pain to traverse, and a lot of not terribly interesting story stuff happening before the end. Like, it's kind of stream poison, I think. I mean, Kingdom Hearts, you can, if you're a big enough fan of anything, really, you can stream anything because you'll just talk and fill the gaps. But I think Dream Drop would definitely be the hardest, besides maybe Days. Days might be hard to stream just because of its structure. Excellence on at least one song. It's hard. Like, it's a lot more precise than in Theater Rhythm. Like I said, I've gotten lots of perfect scores on Theater Rhythm, but I haven't gotten a single one yet, and I want one. Well, Shogun Minamoto would be a great secret boss, although that goes for a lot of Square Enix stuff. Like, there's so many Final Fantasy characters besides Sephiroth that could make for great final or secret bosses, but it's just a very untapped well, unless there are things happening in the future that are going to change that. Yeah, like, I mean, it'd be very thematically appropriate if a future Kingdom Hearts game were to have a Twelve-y secret boss, because even if the location seems to be named Quadratum, it looks a lot like Shibuya. You might say it looks exactly like Shibuya. Oh, you know, I bet I haven't talked much about Dream Drop Distance yet in general, because I've been talking mostly about the songs I've actually played, but I gotta say, Dream Eaters are definitely the worst enemies in all of Kingdom Hearts. Like, there's so many design problems with them, but the animations are nice, so that's good. Like, these big ones, like, even just, like, I think you can see the level of design just by watching how the characters, how the enemies react to characters hitting them in this game. Because, like, if you look at, like, I think they're called Zolifans, if you look at how they react to Riku hitting them, they don't look right at all. Like, it almost has, like, a delayed reaction, and the ways that they, it looks like they're stumbling, even though they're supposed to be getting hit by a heavy attack. Versus, like, in Kingdom Hearts 2, when you smack a nobody in this game, they wiggle all over the place and go flying backwards. Twelve-y is Uwu speak. Hello. And also, hello, Diablo Jobs. You got the songs done on Proud already? That's intense. This game is making me realize how many Keyblades I've forgotten about. Like, mostly the ones from Days, because it's hard to actually check those because it's all based on your gear, and the gear isn't the name of the Keyblade. You have to go to the menu and check. E on this one. Oof. Oh yeah, I gotta keep turning the items back on because I don't know if there's an actual thing for the Switch version, but there's a trophy for getting 100 item uses. Speaking of item uses, I used up a whole bunch of the Mickey items just for the sake of grinding out items. And as far as I can tell, they make it so you can't lose a stage, which is kind of neat. This is so simple and stupid, but fun. Track of how many misses I have. I don't think there's many yet. God, I can't perceive the depth of this. It's kind of, I guess it's by design, but sometimes the camera angles make it kind of hard to see how an enemy is approaching. Like I especially find the problem with some of the gliding angles. Especially when they turn corners. Jeez. Oh, jeez. It's falling apart. I'm not gonna get that star for sure. I'm losing track of what beating's supposed to follow here, honestly. Darker Than Dark is, just on its name alone, a great Keyblade. Yeah, Diablo Jaws, you're setting items if you want to get those sweet, sweet Chivos. How hard could that be? I'm sure it'll work out fine. Yeah, even just looking at this, I did the Tron stage as practice before starting. And obviously it's just because it's aping the aesthetic of the new movie, but this is a lot less interesting to look at than the old Tron aesthetic. Alright, just keep the notes this steady, and I can definitely get them all. Yeah, just this one. The Dream Drop stages love these jumping ways, like how they leap into you. They have those others like diving and once they dive into you. Oh jeez. definitely gets a lot easier to survive as you get leveled up. It's kind of a weird idea for a mechanic to make it so that the game just gets permanently less difficult as you level up, which that's how it always is in RPGs, I guess, but... Yeah, Celestial Cage, I guess the organization could be naming their weapons. It's always kind of vague how that is in RPGs because there's a lot of stuff that wouldn't be in character for someone to know. Sorry. For them to know, but at the same time, it does reflect their character. Within Kingdom Hearts, I wouldn't be surprised if the names are reflections of their heart more so than anything that they particularly chose to name something. Now these things, I guess they're salamanders? These ones always trip me up on higher difficulties. But that's one of the things in terms of variety that I was talking about earlier, because yeah, they got these bouncing meow wows as well, not just the ones that run towards you and spin. Actually, another one that does trip me up, even on lower difficulties, is when big enemies barely get knocked back, because then you have to hit the note right again. I imagine once I know which songs do that, it won't really trip me up anymore, but for the time being, it definitely does sometimes. I think it's nothing to do with how rubbery the Dream Eaters are, that their animations are harder for me to read than the others, like the Heartless and the Nobodies, and even the Unversed. Even though the Unversed have kind of jittery animations, it doesn't really cause as much of a problem, I find. Yeah, there's something I was thinking about earlier, how almost all the songs have a loop, Diablo Jobs. You're saying how, because there's so many of these songs are RPG songs, they loop, and then the second half is harder and usually in an interesting way. Yeah, I was thinking about that, how there's a lot of stuff where, oh, hey, I got the 100 items thing. Guess I can turn them off now, but eh. Yeah, so there'll be reprises where they'll have either a different beat being followed or a more complicated version of the main melody or something like that, which is really neat. Also, yes, Hunchback of Notre Dame, aka Le Cité de Cloche, is not a very good stage. Nice music. It's kind of Dream Drop actually didn't get a ton of music, I found. So there's some missing stuff, I think. Like, a lot of the... Because there's a unique boss theme for every single boss in Dream Drop, which is something I don't think any other Kingdom Hearts game has ever done. But as a result, there's stuff missing, like Ringsler Recompiled, which is one of the boss themes Yoko Shimomura actually did, and it sounds really nice. Meanwhile, you get instead that clown music that plays for the Dream Eaters usually. You have to get a really high chain to get the start on this one. You do have a lot of repeating things though. And the finales have a lot of stuff like that that's designed to really trip you up in the last second. There's a ton of health. Yeah, honestly, Diablo Jobs, even though I have played Dream Drop Distance multiple times, I'm the least familiar with the music because I just don't think the soundtrack is as good as a lot of the other games. It's one of the ones where Yoko Shimomura took a big backseat. There's a lot of stuff that's made by Takahara Ishimoto and I feel bad, I forget the other person's name, but they do a lot of the Dream Eater music as well as, I believe they did the Gummy Ship music in Kingdom Hearts 3. And unfortunately, even though I think, well, especially Ishimoto, he's good when he's not doing instrumental music. And the other person, which I still feel really bad, I can't remember them, but they do fine, like, they do perfectly good music, but Yoko Shimomura is just kind of on another level from most composers. Yeah, Sekito, that's right. Kind of weird, like looking at this is the boss specific version of this area, I believe only for Riku's side of the fight too. So like, within this random little Switch game spin-off, they have basically all the assets for every Kingdom Hearts game besides 3. Oh, and 0.2, yes. I just consider that part of 3 at this point, honestly. Yeah, like, they caught the majority of the enemies, and even like one-off areas. There's only stuff missing is stuff like Pirates of the Caribbean is very absent. They don't even have the Kingdom Hearts 3 version, which doesn't use stuff like he's a pirate. So I assume they just straight up didn't get the likeness for Jack Sparrow or something to that effect. But the thing is, even then, they have Halloween Town, but they just don't have Jack Skellington. So who knows exactly what's going on there? But yeah, they just couldn't get something with that one. Yeah, we were denied our MIDI pirate. He's a pirate. Like, that's legitimately something I really wanted. There's a couple bad MIDI versions of songs that should have been in this game. And I mean, all that said, He's a Pirate in Kingdom Hearts 2 is still a better MIDI than the MIDI versions of Dragon Quest music. And I guess it makes sense they skipped out on the Fantasia world, which would just have been classic music, but classical music, I mean. But I don't know, I think that they could have done it. Like, it's weird because Kingdom Hearts has actually had quite a few rhythm games. Like, usually has special attacks, and then there's also, one moment. There's the rhythm game, the infamous rhythm game in Kingdom Hearts 2, but then there's also one in Birth by Sleep, Ice Cream Beat, and they're both not very good rhythm games. But in Fantasia, each world in Dream Drop Distance had its own special finisher type move. And in Fantasia, it's a rhythm game. And so it's kind of weird how one of the places that has a rhythm game, it didn't get anything in the actual Kingdom Hearts rhythm game, even if it is classical music. Because they could have used Night on Bald Mountain, because that Chernobog was a boss in Kingdom Hearts 1. And so that would have been thematically appropriate. Although speaking of boss fights, I really, really think this game was meant to have more than one boss fight it does, because, like, they don't even have Young Vapor. And, like, you know, they have Ansem, Xemnas, and then Maleficent for some reason. Jesus. Both this song and the battle theme, I think, are my favorite Dream Drop Distance tracks. And the battle theme, I think, is a contender for one of my favorite Disney tracks in the entire franchise. Yeah, I imagine that they wanted to have at least one Disney boss, and Maleficent's the obvious one to do for that. And also, but at the same time, like, and I guess they needed to have one for Birth by Sleep, even though as a result you don't get, well, you do get Xehanort. Xehanort is a boss in this game, but Birth by Sleep, Xehanort, or Vanitas or something like that is absent, and then there's nothing for Dream Drop, so it ends up being kind of weird. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. That last bit was insane. Oh yeah, Diablo jobs getting tripped up by slower songs is very common. That's a common trip up thing for anyone, even experienced players, because then they have the thing where they go back to easier difficulties for like trophies or something like that, and it messes with them. Because the slow stuff, it also they tend to be more precise. You tend to have to get it closer to the actual center, where the faster it goes, they tend to get you a bit more leeway. The bad world in Dream Drop, but honestly, I'd say that only Country of Musketeers is a good world in Dream Drop. Like, even the world that never was, with all the climbing buildings with slow motion, it's really not anything. Slow motion just really feels like a mechanic that they didn't fully think out, or they had a better idea for it that wasn't going over well or wasn't working. Because like when you beat Dream Drop just distance, one of the battle reports will tell you what your most used flow motion ability was, and everyone is going to get wall kick because almost every flow motion ability requires kicking off the wall, and a lot of times traversal also involves kicking off a wall, and the game doesn't feel designed to be aware that you can kick off of walls in the first place. But then also some flow motion things like pole spinning, not pole spinning, there's another one where you spin on horizontal poles, and those are absurdly rare and kind of finicky to even trigger. So obviously that's not going to be anyone's #1 most used flow motion. And a lot of the time the worlds are so flat that the only flow motion stuff is in, like, it's not just like scattered all around the stage, it's usually off in corners and stuff. And there's just a big empty combat spaces besides that. It's a very weirdly not great designed game. Which makes sense because it was apparently the shortest development time that Kingdom Hearts games had. And like it has bugs that you don't really see in Kingdom Hearts games. Like you can get trapped inside of the lamps in Traverse Town if you flow motion into them. Yeah, Pinocchio was cut from Days, and I think that would have been a much better fit. I guess it's easier to incorporate established worlds, but it's so thematically appropriate, and it definitely didn't add a lot to Dream Drop. Actually a world that cleared most recently on my Xbox Dream Drop playthrough. It's such slow going. I started the 3DS version alongside it because I thought I lost that game, but it randomly turned up during some cleaning. But that game's even worse because the enemies are much worse designed so they don't flinch from anything, and it's super claustrophobic with the old camera. even look at the, they're called Kuma something, I believe, the bear and Dream Eaters. Their getting hit animation is just a kind of a stumble. Like it's very unsatisfying animation, which I think is true of both of the Soccer teams, well even Kingdom Hearts 3 I'd say, but Dream Drop Distance and Birth by Sleep suffer from this, where enemies don't react properly, I don't think. Like, yeah, look at how it has almost like a delayed reaction, and it doesn't seem like it's just responding to what's actually happening to it. Which, to be fair, that's kind of something that's going to happen in this game all the time, just because every character has one preset special move that looks flashy, but all the enemies are going to react the same no matter what. But still. Is it Kuma Panda? Alright, that's Dream Drop almost cleared. It is already just a very short game by Kingdom Hearts standards, very few worlds with not much content to them. Like, I'm pretty sure a world in Dream Drop only has slightly longer cutscenes per Disney World versus one visit in Birth by Sleep. And Birth by Sleep has 3 visits to each world with different cutscenes. Did this spelling age well? Do I want to know why it aged well? Man, I have vague nightmare memories of these tiger Dream Eaters. I'm pretty sure these things were just horrifying while they're on screen. These things, they have like a Phantom Rush type attack, which, if that doesn't evoke a certain type of move, it's like a thing where a bunch of illusionary clones of an enemy will attack you a whole bunch of times. And I remember them just comboing you to death in the 3DS version. They didn't really flinch either. Like in Dream Drop, enemies, well, the original Dream Drop, enemies barely flinched. It was a somewhat random chance as far as I know. Also, man, this is a lovely song. Like, it's such an interesting take on the Kingdom Hearts 2 song. Oops. Fire! Yeah, I just remember the endgame Dream Drop enemies being real rough to fight. Like, there's a fundamental problem with Dream Eaters, which is that they're meant to function as party members and as enemies. So they end up having stuff that is really not fun to fight against. Like, sometimes Dream Eater will just use zero gravity on you, which will make you float up and be defenseless for a while. But a lot of Dream Eaters have no actual like AI to deal with you floating above them, so you just kind of float there for a while, and that's it. That's the entire move. It just wastes your time, and it comes out really fast because it's just regular zero gravity, which is a move you can do. Because Dream Eaters all use commands that you can get, because when you level them up, when you spend link points on them, you get commands relevant to them. Like you get balloon from Meow Wow, that kind of thing. Yeah, this I feel is definitely meant to be a young Xehanort boss fight, not just a stage where you run through his boss arena. Oh hey, fun fact about this boss arena, it has hourglasses that are references to the colors that represent the deadly sins, which seem to be a major thing in the next part of Kingdom Hearts because all of the Lost Masters are relevant to one of the sins. And there's even been more explicit connections recently with the Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key Dark Road stuff, where it's interesting, honestly, because the Dark Road stuff almost reads like someone's essay that they're writing about Disney movies, because like they're scrutinizing the world of in the most recent update Wonderland, and they're trying to figure out which of the deadly sins is the root of the darkness into Kingdom Hearts' heart, which is, it's such an absurd concept, but it's interesting though, because it's still within, it works as an analysis of the actual media. Yeah, the foretellers, apparently their names even refer to the deadly sins. I forget any of the reasoning for it, and it's not really anything close to my area of expertise. But yeah, that seems to be the direction that the next series is going. Oh yes, and then they've got the Street Noto, but they don't have the Ansem version of this. Like, it's the track choices in this game are so weird. Like, I'm almost convinced that they want to make another one, or they just had to cut some stuff. Yeah, isn't it confirmed somehow that the Master of Masters' name is Superbia? Like, I feel like that came out in some Japanese thing, like maybe a Ultimania or something. Oops, I changed the difficulty. Oh yeah, this actually reminds me. This remix in Remind, Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, if I examine this, is really great. But that just reminded me that for all this game's recapping, it doesn't actually recap Remind. And the thing that's weird about that is that it's a direct follow-up to Remind, like a hyper-direct Remind follow-up. It's literally like the ending of Remind is happening parallel to this theme. And they don't bother to recap it at all, despite the fact that this is a Switch game, and there's no way for someone who theoretically only owns a Switch and doesn't check on YouTube to know what the deal is. And like, yeah, obviously that's the thing I'll always say is just check on YouTube, because it's not like we lived in the ancient Kingdom Hearts 2 times where it was difficult to find out stuff. But it's a recap game, so not recapping stuff feels like a failure. Especially because I feel like that's the thing that you most want to actually recap, because even people who Kingdom Hearts 2 might not have been interested in or even aware of a DLC. Man, I'm not doing good on this. Jesus Christ. Super X is a very in-character thing for the Master of Masters to have on that box. And yeah, I was really expecting Noctflugel. I feel like they could have skipped some other song, because I'm sure, even though it was a very late thing, and obviously this game was finalized before Kingdom Hearts 3, but they could have just put a little bit of time into putting Noctflugel in as like a final thing. Maybe even just like an unlockable for getting everything else. I don't know. Because that would have been insane on Proud. Like, maybe too insane, but that's the fun of it. And yeah, with Remind's remixes, I don't think I definitively like any of them better than the originals, but they're all great. Yeah, I wonder if they'd been able to have, assuming that they did want a lot more bosses, because I feel like all of these boss stages practically scream that they wanted to have that. And it's so bizarre to have an entire way of playing the game that isn't, like, it's barely used. There's 4 bosses, and they have an entire mechanic based around it. Like, there's an entirely different way of displaying combat. The rhythm game versus everything else in the game. So like, it just seems like a bizarre thing to have barely anything of. So that's why I assume we want more of it. And if that's the case, I wonder if this would also be an event this would be a fight. Man, my timing's off. Honestly, even though it would have been kind of dumb, something I could have totally accepted as a substitute would have been just to replace the enemies with an armored Ventus Nightmare, or whatever other boss that was meant to be relevant for the song. I have considered messing around with the delay, but I don't think I'd be able to notice. I'm not that in tune with it to be able to tell that small of a difference. And honestly, I usually do fine when I'm not streaming, so that's probably a factor. And yeah, I would love to see PS2 Yozora / Noctis. Like, real talk, the PlayStation 2 aesthetic is evergreen. It looks so good. The PS2 render of Kairi, which I have on my stream overlay, it looks so good, and I'd say it looks better than the PS3 render. Because the PS3, I don't think they quite, PS3, Jesus, PS4, I don't think they quite nailed it. I think they improved a lot over time. Like 0.2 doesn't look great. But it still has a somewhat rubbery texture to it in certain lighting. Sometimes it looks amazing, like genuine, just phenomenal. But yeah, sometimes like it's really nitpicky stuff. Like you can look at Kairi's KH3 render and her clothes are just a little bit shinier. And then with the PS2, it's not so much that it's less shiny, it's that it's more vague what the material is. So it doesn't matter as much, that it looks kind of like it doesn't look real, but it doesn't matter because it's just a gradient basically. Like it's a flat image pasted over a vaguely 3D model.